I will look at learning strategies and activities to support EL learners in your class or group. EL readers. Expose EL readers to a range of texts. Context is important. Provide a range of reading activities. Provide good reading role models. Allow reading for enjoyment. When choosing a story for reading, take into consideration the context. The context is important for all learners, but especially for EAL learners. Offering context that is relatable provides a sense of comfort and reassurance for the learner, but also it offers more opportunity for talking and listening. By providing a context that is familiar will open up the first stage of learning for the learner. Also, at this stage, it is beneficial to the learner to be provided with good role models in reading. Reading. Reading involves both decoding and reading for meaning. So what is decoding? I would like to take a minute to share what decoding and reading for understanding is. Decoding is the ability to apply knowledge of letter-sound relationships, including knowledge of letter patterns, to correctly pronounce written words. Of course, correct English pronunciation can prove a challenge for some EAL learners, so offer lots of modelling, and this modelling can also be from peers as well as a class teacher. There are many phonics apps that you can use to support this too. Reading for meaning is focusing on developing skills linked to reading. These skills are remembering, understanding, application, analysing, evaluating and creating. Phonics. Phonics is of course the foundation of the learner's letter sound recognition, but of course EL learners have a first language where sounds may be pronounced and heard quite differently. This could be noted when delivering phonics lessons. Lots of opportunities to see, hear and say the sound would be beneficial to all learners. Offering photographic images that are easily recognisable regardless of cultural background is helpful too. Much of this can be learnt at the survival language stage, but there's no harm in filling these gaps if it presents itself, or simply revisiting survival language. An EL learner's foundation years may be quite different from their monolingual peers. They may not have had the level of English language input as other learners, therefore starting off at a different stage. This does not, however, mean that they do not have the ability. In fact, they are just as competent as their peers, but this may not present itself in their ability right away. Here are some activities that you would do for your learners. These are the skills listed in Bloom's taxonomy, so you're already familiar with tasks and activities that develop and support this type of learning. However, if you come across gaps in learning, which we all know happens quite often, then at this point those gaps should be filled. EL learners may not be exposed to any other way of filling these information gaps, especially if there's not much English language spoken at home. These gaps may be a lack of knowledge of keywords or the subject area. This is why selection of context is important at the initial stage of choosing a reading book or story. Gaps can present themselves in simple things such as morning routines, not knowing what breakfast is. These are simple cultural differences that as practitioners we may not be aware of. These activities are all activities that you will be doing with your monolingual and bilingual learners, so you should be familiar with activities that match these skills. So over the next few slides we're going to look at some of the strategies in a little bit more detail. So supporting reading and analysing text. How to approach a new text. First, introduce new vocabulary as well as key vocabulary. You can do this by using flashcards pointing at beginning and end sounds. Highlight these in different colours. So these strategies are ones that you're already using in your phonics and spelling activities. Use images by playing match image to word games. Again, checking cultural context so that it is relatable in some way. This does not mean that you need to spend hours hunting for a book that is in any specific culture, but choose a topic that is universal to all. For example, context that maybe involves welcoming a new baby, celebrations, making friends. These will provide an inclusive learning environment where all of your learners can take part. This is showing us some examples of activities that you could do at word level, sentence level and text level. Supporting reading, remembering and understanding. Remembering and understanding. This can be developed through retrieval practice by asking questions around the story. This can be oral or written depending on age, stage, level of your learner. You can use bingo games, flashcards or connecting images to text games. Understanding activities would be things like questioning or rereading a passage and asking the learner to draw a picture of what is being described. Of course, there are many other activities that you're already using. Just be mindful to offer scaffolding material for EAL learners where necessary. Application and creating. So this is where your learner is going to show what they have learned. And this may still require scaffolding, so keep that in mind. Recreation does not need to be written if this does not suit the learner's ability or level. You could role play a part of the story, change a part of the story using illustration, use comic strips are good for this, or a story map. These are all areas that you can provide scaffolding material. I quite like the idea of putting learners into small groups here. Small groups with good English role models. One of my groups decided they wanted to recreate a story. The EL learner could take on a role that suits their level and ability without slowing down the pace of learning of others. Of course, you would have a hand in guiding this part of the planning. I have used this strategy many times and found it effective. It not only eases planning, but you're ensuring inclusion with steady pace of learning for all your learners. You may find that your EA learner really shines here, and it offers lots of more learning opportunities in literacy. For your higher level EL learners, they can write a report, a newspaper article based on the context. In one of my reading projects, I planned a sequence of lessons where the learners had to create a newspaper article for the Twits by Roald Dahl. The learners chose one of the situations in the story where a trick was played, and they decided that they wanted to write a newspaper article about it. They really enjoyed this, and the additional language opportunities were vast in this task. These are a list of questions that you could ask yourself during assessment of the child's learning progression. It can be used as a learning checklist to create success criteria or a learning grid, and also used at the end of a sequence of lessons. Again, I'd just like to end this part of the presentation with reiterating strategies for supporting all readers, regardless of level and ability. Group reading, paired reading with an older learner and reading to a learner. Again, making sure that you're providing good role models, but also be aware that confidence in reading aloud may take some time. Even providing a simple oral summary can take time for your EAL learners. Thank you.